allows us to do the other part of our business, which is to share those learnings with you and with others based on what we've learned, so that you can build your capabilities to impact what happens inside of your organization. And we do that through some events like this, and we also do that inside of organizations through some of our proprietary training and tool transfer activities. Now, a lot of the stories and things that we gain and share with others come from organizations that we have the chance to read about, that we sometimes work with, and that are oftentimes in the press. And so today we'll be sharing some stories from these and other organizations that will enlighten our discussion as we talk a little bit more about business models. Now, before I get too much further into today's topic, I wanted to sort of set the stage by talking a little bit about a phenomenon that I think all of us have probably begun to see or experience. And I think this quote from Charles Schwab sort of sums it up really well. He was quoted as saying, "We brought prices down, down, down. So they are now essentially commodities. So if we want to succeed in this business, we have to move in a direction of adding other value to the relationship with our clients." And so where I might have said 15 years ago, we want to be the best discount brokerage, today, I want to be the best relationship company in financial services. Now, whether we know much about Charles Schwab and that business or not, they were a leader for a time in being a discount brokerage to help people with their financial decisions and making trades and buying financial products and so forth. But over time, they got to be known as being one of the most helpful and friendly organizations online in helping customers do this. And what I find interesting about this quote is, here you have a founder of an organization who is highlighting in a pretty substantial way the fact that over time, what made an organization distinctive and special changes. And what made you a winner in the past may not allow you to continue to win in the same way going forward. And so as we start our conversation and we start to think about this issue of competition, what this really reiterated for me is the fact that competition is getting more competitive. And what used to set us apart and distinguish us no longer may do so in some cases. Now, there's an organization that I have the privilege to be working with, and our organization is doing some work with right now. They're a leader around the world in their particular space. They've made some of the best products in their particular niche, and they've done a tremendous job in selling that across the world, and now they have a very substantial install base worldwide for their particular products and some of the services that go with it. But what they're realizing is that the growth potential and the opportunity to differentiate their organization is starting to be much like Charles Schwab described. Things are commoditizing. The products that were so innovative and great 10 or 15 years ago are now sort of run-of-the-mill. They're good, they're solid, and so forth, but competitors can offer things that are equally as good. And so now it's becoming a little bit of a food fight, trying to sell some more products and continue to maintain a market leadership position by selling more products and services. So to this company's credit, what they've done is they've stepped back and they've said, what is really the problem that our customer is trying to solve for? And what they've realized is that the customer does need a product to fulfill certain needs in their businesses. This is a business-to-business company. But more importantly than just having the product, this customer needs access to data about how the product is helping them do their business. They need systems that allow them to diagnose and to provide different services. They need a way to frankly just run their business a little bit differently and provide more value added. And this company that's been selling products for years is saying to themselves, if that's what our customers really need, how are we going to do that? And this is what, for me, spurred an interest in this topic. I think we're seeing it written about in a lot of different places. Earlier this year, there was a great article in the Harvard Business Review about platforms, pipelines, and strategy. And I think what it's bringing forward is the fact that one of the great ways or the best ways to differentiate right now is in building out a platform. And we're going to talk a bit about what that is, but this client of ours that's working on this is starting to realize, you know, we've got products, we've got services, but that's not enough. We need to build a platform that really helps answer some of the questions that our customers have around the systems and the data and the information about their customers. And if we can't do that, somebody else will come in and fill that need. And so they're having to pivot from being a product leader to really becoming the innovator and the creator of a platform that will bring new value to their customers. So where are we going to go today? There's three primary areas that we'd like to touch on. These are sort of, for me, the keys for designing a differentiated business model. The first one is to talk about rethinking what products and services mean to customers and to providers. Secondly, orchestrating a value-added platform for customers and providers and how to go about doing that. And thirdly, how to then build out a platform ecosystem that enhances the stickiness of and value for customers. Now, on the surface, those keys might seem cryptic, or they may not seem like they're particularly action-oriented, but as we go into each of these, hopefully you'll walk away with some ideas that will spur some thinking, that will prompt questions that you might ask to leaders in your organization, or that will prompt you in how you facilitate certain discussions with business leaders. And if you are an executive and you're trying to think about these competitive issues, hopefully it will give you some ideas of how you can take the capabilities and strength of your business and start to pivot it in a way that will bring added value for your business and allow you to step out from the competitive crowd and differentiate. So let's dive into the first of these, rethinking what products and services mean to customers and providers. If you search Google, you can find all sorts of crazy things, and I came across this little picture that suggests that what more could a person want than a bacon-flavored Diet Coke. I know that everyone's been out there craving this, and you'll be pleased to know that this will soon be on a store shelf near you. But the premise here is that when we start to think about what value is to a customer, we sometimes think we take our base product that has been so successful and we just start adding more and more features and dimensions to it. The reality is it's a little bit more complex than that, and it's a little bit more nuanced than that. In fact, we often have to ask the customer, what are you trying to accomplish? What is the job that you need to have done? And how can we rethink the way we help you solve that or meet that job? Now, when we think about a traditional business model, often they're defined by a set of products or services that are delivered or created and delivered to the customer. There's very distinct inputs, things that happen inside the organization to produce very definitive outputs. There's usually physical infrastructure. That's not necessarily a bad thing, but there's usually a plant, or there's a distribution mechanism, or there's a retail store, or something like that. It's typically reasonably sequential or linear in the way that it happens. We take an input, put it into the plant, we go through our steps of refinement, we create value, and then we turn around and ship it to a customer. So it's a fairly linear, sequential process. There are customers and providers, and they're usually connected through the value add that your organization does by manufacturing something, by marketing something, by stocking or selling something. And the value is created through the process that an organization performs that connects the customer and the provider together. And over time, the customer's loyalty is secured really through the product or service that you deliver that is unique from what others are looking for. Now, that's sort of the traditional business model. Nothing wrong with that. The problem is that when you're like Charles Schwab and your business over time starts to commoditize, you start to run out of opportunities and options, frankly, for continuing to differentiate. So in contrast, we start to hear, and we have been hearing a lot about the idea of a platform business model. Now, how different is this from things that we are already familiar with? Well, there are a lot of platforms out there, and we probably are quite familiar with some of them already. Um, Basically, a platform, let me start with a description here. A platform really tends to gain its value by facilitating the exchange of information or facilitating interactions. Some platforms, in fact, don't even have a product per se. They're just facilitating the exchange of information or people getting together and exchanging something of value. The attributes of the platform tend to be fairly configurable. They can change, they can morph over time, whereas once you've built a factory or once you've built a retail store, you have less flexibility to move things around as the needs of customers change. And in a platform, there is a little bit more ability sometimes to configure or reconfigure things to meet evolving needs. Often it is digital. And when we say digital, there's multiple or many different channels through which the value can be disseminated or created. It's multidimensional, which means it doesn't just start in one place and sequentially move through a series of steps to end in a customer's possession. It's something that can be initiated sometimes by a customer or sometimes by someone who's trying to provide value. And there's certainly value that's coming not only through the process, but through the network effects, meaning that as more and more people participate on the platform, more value is created. And finally, this idea of customer retention sort of shifts to how do I make the platform and the experience so sticky that people want to stay and participate. So these are some of the rough characteristics. And let me use a very simple example to kind of illustrate this, and then we can start to talk of some more common examples in the world today. In a very basic way, a retail store is a traditional business model. Somebody puts a shingle out and says, I'm selling some set of products, and people come to the store and buy them. That's a fairly simple, basic, traditional business model. A platform business model, using an equally simple example, is like a shopping mall. Instead of there just being one store, there's an entire mall full of stores that facilitate exchanges among different providers, and a customer can come in and can browse multiple stores with multiple options, and sometimes there's even competitors in the same mall, that I could buy clothing from one store versus another store. But the great thing about the mall is you get the added value of the network effects. I can go to one location, I can purchase lots of things, and in some respects, I may even pick up purchases if I'm a retailer in a mall, sales that I wouldn't have gotten otherwise, simply because someone was walking down the hall and they decided to buy something on the spur of the moment that they wouldn't have normally purchased. And that's the great thing about being in a shopping mall. There's convenience for all, there's the network effects, and the more compelling the offerings there, the more people will go to a mall to shop. Now, I'm not making a case for why shopping malls should stay in our suburban neighborhoods and so forth, but I am suggesting that in a very simple way, a single retail store is a traditional business model. A shopping mall is a very basic form of a business platform. And we see this in a lot of different companies that we're probably familiar with. If we went to a very extreme example, or a common example, a traditional business model might be a Macy's, who is obviously working to transform its business to become omni-channel, and it's competing against a business like Amazon.com, which was very much formed as a platform business to start with. So with those kind of fundamental differences understood, we go back to the question, what's different about this? And perhaps the biggest difference about it is the fact that the platform creates a place, a marketplace, digital or physical, where both customers, consumers, and providers of value can come together to meet. times it can just simply be there's lots of them and they find ways to meet there. Other times the platform itself creates a process whereby consumers and providers can exchange value. Uber is a great example of a platform business model. Airbnb is another great example of a platform business model. You know, Airbnb has no hotel rooms. It has no property, but it has, and it is, the greatest number of rooms available for its customers of any business out there, more than a Marriott, more than a Hilton, simply by facilitating people who have space meeting up with people who need to rent a place to stay. So the way that we think about value changes considerably when we start to think about the platform.